get started. So hello, everyone. Good evening to all of our Russian attendees. Good morning to Carrie. And first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Irina Shiglova, and I'm a junior researcher at the Institute of Education at HSC. And first of all, also, I would like to take a few minutes to introduce our initiative, which is called Skills Lab. And together with my colleagues, Sofia Dekuka and Oksana Dryomova, we have been organizing Skills Lab workshops for about 2 years, but don't be surprised that it's just the first time when you heard about this. We were actually doing all these in traditional face-to-face format, but in March 2020, we moved Skills Lab online, and it actually allowed us to attract a broader audience. And the majority of our webinars, they're devoted to data collection, data analysis, and data visualization. However, we do have a workshop and events on other topics, which actually help to survive and succeed in academia. So recently we had a webinar on stress management, for example. And today with Carrie, we will be talking about study abroad opportunities in the United States. And yeah, if you're probably following international news, you might notice that there are some positive tendencies regarding international students and also opportunities. And now my colleague Sofia Dekuka, she will tell about timing and some other things about the webinar. Please, Sofia.
Irina, thank you. Today we have quite an interesting lecture, Studying and Living in the US. We welcome our speaker, Carrie Circosta, CEO, International Student Voice. A couple of words about seminar rules. We have 40-50 minutes talk by our speaker. Then we move to discussion. We welcome our participants to write their question in the chat during the presentation and during the whole lecture. We also would like to ask you questions after the presentation, and we would appreciate turn off your microphones during the presentation. All seminar materials would be available on our page Skills Lab at HSC portal, and our lectures would be available on our YouTube channels. And we also would like to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channels and join our Contact group. There are a lot of useful materials, then you can find them. Please enjoy our lecture. Thank you, Carrie. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for choosing to watch this webinar today. Like the wonderful lady said, my name is Carrie Circosta. I'm the Executive Director of International Student Voice. And today I'm going to provide some general information about studying in the United States. What are the different opportunities? What are the different types of degrees that are available? I'm going to touch on a little about there's opportunities to actually finish high school in the US. I know maybe this may not necessarily apply, but I thought it would be important to share because it's a newer type of opportunity, and maybe you have family members or friends that might be interested. I'll also talk a little bit about financing education. How does that work when you study in the United States? And if you would like to apply, what is a timeline that you should plan for? And if you are seeking help in doing that, I can tell you a little bit more about what we do at International Student Voice and how we can help you. And then here at the beginning, I'll also talk about just international students in general in the United States. So just like the lady shared, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. You can never ask me too many questions. If I don't answer right away, we'll make sure that we get your questions answered at the end. So a little bit more about International Student Voice. So we started in 2011 with a very simple mission. We want to advocate for international students in the United States. So not only advocate why they are a crucial part of the higher education system in the United States, but also giving them a voice. We want to hear from international students. We know sometimes it may be intimidating when you go to a new country. You know, can I say something? Can I not say something? And we want to empower international students to share their stories, their experiences, and also to help build a community among international students while they're in the United States. So we help advocate for international students in a couple of ways. Most importantly, we listen to the international student in helping them find the best avenue or the best path to what it is they want to accomplish. So if that's finding and applying to an affordable university or college in the United States, we help. If it's providing easy to understand immigration resources, if it's visas or, just other things, work-related visas, anything else immigration related, we have resources on that, as well as assistance navigating and living, in a new country. We also share international student stories via social media. So you can look us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on YouTube. And we actually have a live show on our Instagram account where we invite international students in to share stories from, how they're coping with COVID-19 to how they were able to save money, or how they were able to find scholarships or anything else that they would like to share with other international students. So with that, I just wanted to touch a little bit about international students in the US in general. We've had more than 1 million international students, 1 million international students in the US for 5 consecutive years. The 5th year being the 2019-2020 academic year. And while international students have always been welcomed in the United States, I want to touch on that, our country is going through a transition since we have a new president. And so far, President Biden has only been in office for a month and maybe about a month. He just got inaugurated. But he's already indicating things that he would like to change in being a more inclusive of international students. And maybe that has not been perceived in the media for the past couple of years. I was sharing earlier that there's, what you hear in the media and then what is actually reality. So I think we're all, breathing a sigh of relief. And I think because he is already indicating some more inclusive bills and what he would like to be introduced. For example, he has introduced the Citizenship Act of 2021, and it still has to be passed by Congress. But if this does pass, it makes it easier for international students who have graduated from a U.S. university in an advanced STEM degree. So that's science, technology, engineering, and math. If they graduate with, with a degree in one of those areas, it's going to be a little bit easier for them to stay in the U.S. and work afterwards. So, so there's a couple of other things that he has already indicated that is showing how he wants to have a more inclusive approach around international students and immigration in general. So while I wanted to share that because I think the United States is home to the most international students in the world than any other country, and we still, have over 1 million international students. I wanted to share that because, we've always welcomed international students in the U.S. Doesn't matter where you are in the U.S. And I'm happy to see that we have an administration that maybe is being able to reflect that stance that many Americans have. So we're always going to have welcoming and open arms to anybody who wants to come to the U.S. to study. So with that, I wanted to give an overview about higher education in the United States. I find when I work with other students from different countries that this is helpful, and why this is really important when it comes to deciding which university or college is best for you, depending on what you want to study. So the first thing, we have what's called a community college in the United States. They are mostly known for a 2-year associate's degree. So an associate's degree is pretty much, it gives you the basic foundation of your major or your topic of study. And you can go for 2 years to a community college for an associate's degree and then start working. What most people do is they go to a community college first for 2 years, and then they transfer to a university. And then they spend 2 more years at the university and then finish their bachelor's degree. And the reason for this is because community colleges are usually a lot more affordable than a university. So if you're looking maybe for some like hands-on training, your basic foundation, you can go to a community college, save tons of money, and spend 2 years and get that degree, or you can start there and then transfer to a university. The second type of institution I want to talk about is the liberal arts school. And these are typically the smaller universities. They typically only offer undergraduate or bachelor degrees. And class sizes tend, to be small, 15 to 20 students in the classes. So this is great if you're looking, if you're in arts, philosophy, things like that. So that is the liberal arts school. The most known is our public and private universities. So a public university or college is usually government, state-owned institutions, and they offer everything: bachelor, master, and PhD, doctorate degrees. And with private universities, they offer the same bachelor, master, PhD, but just like their name says, they are privately owned. So really, I wanted to share this because I think having an understanding of all this can help students feel more confident about, okay, what type of institution is going to best fit my needs. So some students are more comfortable starting at a community college because maybe they want to, it's an easier transition. Community college classes also tend to be a little bit smaller. So it's a great way to adjust, save some money, and then transfer to a maybe public or private university. So it really just depends on your situation. Man, I keep skipping my slides. Okay. The one thing I want to touch on, again, this may not be applicable to everyone who's watching, but I wanted to share this because I think it's a really unique opportunity, and perhaps you know somebody who could would be interested in this. So there is a way for international students to finish high school in the United States, and we partner with community colleges, the only community colleges that are able to offer this in the United States. So your traditional path is that you spend 4 years in high school, and then 2 years in community college, and then transfer to the university, and then finish your bachelor's, just like I talked about. Well, there's a program that's called a High School Completion Plus. So what happens is that you spend 2 years of high school in Russia, you spend 2 years of high school in Russia, then you come to a community college in the US. And while you're spending the last 2 years of high school, your classes not only will count towards your high school diploma or your credentials, but the classes you take will also count towards an associate's degree. So by the time you're done with high school, you can also earn an associate's degree at the same time. So why is that important? Well, that's important because you're saving time and you're also saving money. So by the time, typically students finish when they're 18 with high school. So by the time you're 18, you're done with high school and you also have an associate's degree. So from there, you could apply for a work visa, a work permit, and work in the United States, or you can go ahead and transfer to a university. So if you spend 2 more years here, you can then finish your bachelor's degree. So by the time you're 20, you're done. Like you have your bachelor's degree done. So I wanted to share this. And again, we partner with the only community colleges that offer this. It's very select in terms of community colleges who are able to offer this. There's only a very few, and we're so excited to partner with them. So if you know somebody who might be interested in this and you want to learn more information, you can certainly share this with them. So I wanted to share it because it's very unique. It's a great way to save time and to save money. Okay. Of course, any big decision like studying in the US or anywhere, it comes down to finances. So what do you need to think about when it comes to making sure you can afford the study abroad opportunity? And of course, we get a lot of questions about this. And I would say the most important factor is picking the right university or college. And it really depends on what your budget, of course, what you can afford, but also what you want to study. And I will tell you, I mean, in the United States alone, I mean, there's more than 4,000 universities and colleges. And it's so easy to, you know, to look at maybe the rankings in some way, which is important and I understand, but there's so many high quality institutions in the country. And it's such a, I mean, a vast country that it can be, it's intimidating to try to find the best one. And that's where an organization like International Student Voice can help you. So the cost is going to vary based on type of the university or college, as well as the cost of living. So it's going to be more expensive, obviously, to live in New York City versus maybe the state of Ohio, which is a lot more affordable, but they have just as great or just as great as education as you would find somewhere else. So also important is to look, when you look at the institutions, the university or colleges, is the different type of scholarships that they have. So some institutions, they have great scholarships for international students. Others, it's very, very limited. So that's also an important factor when you're looking at which university or college is right for you. Different types of scholarships that are available. So there's academic scholarships. So that means it's merit-based depending on your grades. The university might offer scholarships for international students. That's merit-based. And there's also, you know, different external organizations. You know, they you know, have different scholarships for international students. In particular, for maybe if you're thinking about a master's degree or a PhD program in the United States, there's something that's called a graduate assistantship. So this is, once you're admitted to a program, you can then apply for an assistantship. And basically what that means is that you work for a department at the university. Usually it's about 20 hours a week. And then in exchange, they will pay your tuition. So, so that is I would recommend the best route to go. If you're looking for a master's or a PhD program in the US. They are competitive, of course, but it's not impossible. So there's several international students who are able to get graduate assistantships. So usually it's in the department of, you know, where they're doing their studies. So for example, maybe you're doing a master's in, I'll say, geology, something like that. You could apply for an assistantship within your department, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are several different departments that offer assistantships across campus. You could maybe work in the international office at the university, the office that helps, you know, advise international students, for example. So there's lots of different opportunities. And that's something our team at International Student Voice can help guide you and how to look for those assistantships. So it's an entirely different process. So once you apply and that you're admitted, then there's a separate application process. You then apply for graduate assistantships, and usually there's like an interview process. So we guide students through that process. There's also athletic scholarships, and this is something we just did if you go over on our Instagram account, we actually just had a former international student athlete talk about his experience. So if you don't know, sports and, you know, college sports, university sports in particular in the US is like this whole, you know, phenomenon within itself. So it's a huge deal. But there's a lot of scholarship opportunities. And I wanted to bring this up because it's something maybe many international students do not think about. And you don't have to be a record-breaking athlete. You don't have to, you know, have these dreams of being a professional athlete. But if you do, that's okay too. But there's a lot of opportunities, and there's so many different sports that you can play in the US, and they offer scholarships. So if it's, you know, bachelor's, if they're mostly, you know, undergraduate students who play for sports teams, but it is open to other students as well. Usually master's or PhD students usually don't do it because they're very busy in terms of research. But I wanted to share this because it's something I'm always about sharing what's available. So then we can help students make the best decision. So I wanted to share this because, I mean, from everything, not only from like US football to baseball, but gymnastics, swimming, tennis, everything, there's a scholarship. So I wanted to share that as well. And then of course, there's always government scholarships. We help students identify if there's any opportunities around, maybe there's US, sponsored scholarships, as well as, third-party scholarships. There's different websites out there where students can go and look, and the amounts vary from a couple of $100s to maybe a couple of $1,000. So, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was loans. So there are different loan options for international students. Many of them, most of them require some type of cosigner that's a US citizen, but we partner with a couple of companies that we're very excited that we partner with them, that they're able to offer loans for international students where you don't need to have a US citizen cosigner. You don't have to pay anything, not until you're done with your degree. And we partner with some, in particular, master's degrees. So this way you can, have a loan. You don't have to worry about, money. Where am I going to pay for this? I have to worry about paying my bill. So we partner with a company that they do offer loans for international students. So we can help you see, depending on what you want to study and where you want to go, if you qualify for a loan. So, and we've had students who were able to do this and just talk about just the relief that they've had. They did not have to worry about, how am I going to pay for this? So, yes, okay. Irina, that was a great question. And it's a good segue into my next slide. So, talking about the estimated timeline. Okay, so you're thinking, okay, maybe I want to, try this out. What type of timeline should I plan for? And this is just a recommendation. It's certainly not, oh, I missed this deadline, I can't do it. This is what we recommend, but we work with students, with a variety of timelines and when they decide to start the process. So we usually recommend roughly around 18 months before you would want to come to study in the United States. That's when you start doing your research and you start working with an organization like International Student Voice. So thinking about what it is that you want to study, how is this going to help you get you on the right path, what you want to accomplish, and maybe start narrowing down some possible universities and colleges. And then about a year, 12 to 14 months before your US study, that's when you want to start applying. And to Irina's question in the chat about what is it that you can do to make your application stand out, I think what you really want to do, and it depends on what program that you're applying for, they're going to be very specific about what the application requirements are. Obviously, there's your standard application that you need to fill out. You may need to submit an essay, and they have an essay question that you need to answer. And those are really important. I would say, I'll talk about master's programs or doctorate programs. The essays are really, really important to make you stand out. And what institutions are really looking for is why. Why coming to this particular institution how is it going to help you in terms of your career goals, but how are you going to benefit or bring value to that institution? And that is something a lot of universities are looking for. So not only you can talk about, okay, what you hope to accomplish, but the universities want to know, how are you going to represent us? How are you, I'll pick Ohio State University, for example. You coming to Ohio State, how are you going to represent Ohio State University? How are you going to help and give back to our community? So that's something I always share with students. It's great to talk about the research that you've done and how well you do in classes, but I mean, it's very competitive. Everyone's doing well in classes. So you need to really figure out what is that specific point that's going to make you stand out from everybody else. And I think in doing that, you can talk about how you're going to help make the Ohio State community, for example. Are you going to educate others about your country and culture? How are you going to be an ambassador as well for that university. So to me, that's something I think universities and colleges are really looking for. They're looking for leaders, and they're looking for people who are unique. So you really, and that's something our team does when we sit down and we listen to your story and what is it that you want to do, really honing in on that unique factor and what makes you different from everybody else. So, so 12 to 14 months before your US study, that's when you want to start submitting applications. Every US university and college is a little bit different when it comes to applying. Some use what's called the Common App. So that's where you can do one application and then submit it to many universities and colleges. But then some have their own application, so we'll help you through that. Also, if you need to take entrance exams, so for example, if you need to take maybe the ACT or SAT, if you need to take the GRE, which is something a lot of people need to take for a master's degree program, you'll probably have to take TOEFL or IELTS, which is your English, test your English level. So making sure that you have those done. And of course, what it is that you want to do, we'll make sure that, if you need to take any entrance exams, we'll make sure you take the right ones. So that's when roughly a year out, you want to start taking those entrance exams. 10 to 12 months before your study, that's when you want to start maybe requesting your transcripts. So for example, if you're going high school to your bachelor's degree, collecting your high school, if you're going from your bachelor's and coming to the US for a master's degree, getting your transcripts from your bachelor's degree. And then I talked a little bit about essays, start working on your essays. Some might require references. So that means that you would have to have a reference letter from maybe a professor or somebody you worked for, somebody who can speak to the value and the value that you would bring to the institution. Again, it depends on which program and which school, and we'll help you, figure out what makes a good reference letter and guide you through that process. And then about 10 months out, this is good if you need to maybe retake some of those entrance exams, you still have time. This is where you can finalize your finances, making sure everything's in order. And then, completing and submitting all applications. So that means, 12 to 14 months out, you can submit an application, just get the paper, get your application in. They still, many universities and colleges still allow you time to gather all your documents. So the base application, it looks like your basic application, your name, address, basic information about you. Then you usually have to submit your transcripts, then your English level, your English exam, and then any other entrance exams, essays, reference letters, and so forth. So you can get the application started, but then, you still have time to submit all your other documents. So about 10 months, before your study, you want to make sure that you have everything in and submitted, and then you'll officially know if you got admitted or not. So there's actually two different types of admissions. There's your fully admitted, and then there's conditional admission. So fully admitted is pretty straightforward. It means that you got in, you got accepted, you're good to go. Conditional admission, you might receive that if maybe there's a document missing from your application. They'll say, we'll give you conditional admission until, and then maybe whatever might be missing, when you get that turned in, then we'll give you full admission. So I share that because, conditional admission is still okay. And if you do receive that, then, we'll follow up and say, okay, what is it that we're missing? We'll make sure that we get that in. So we're getting closer to the exciting part. So roughly 3 months before you would come to the US to study, that's when you would apply for your student visa. So what happens is when you are officially admitted to a university or college in the US, they will send you what's called an I-20. So that I-20 is what you need in order to apply for your student visa. So and we have resources, that we provide our students about that. You have to go to the embassy for the interview. and kind of what to expect during that. This is also when you want to look at health insurance. So it is mandatory that international students have health insurance while they study in the United States. And we have a great partner as well that provides affordable options for international students when it comes to health insurance. And then you want to start making your travel arrangements because you'll be coming to the US soon to study. And then roughly a month before is when you're running around trying to pack and trying to figure out what it is that you need. And we help with all that stuff too. So students who work with International Student Voice, we do a pre-departure orientation. So so before you leave, what is it, I have a checklist, what do I need, what do I not need, and how to get ready to come. And we can customize that too, depending on where in the US that you're going. So going to California is going to be a little bit different if you're going to Florida. So we'll adjust based on where you're going in the country. So, and I wanted to share, so this timeline also depends on, we have semesters. Most universities and colleges are in semesters, a few are in quarters. So typically, when it comes to semesters, you have your fall semester, and that begins in August, September. And then your spring semester is in January. And then there's summer. And the summer is actually divided into 3 sections. I'll say that most students start in the fall, which is August, September. But it doesn't mean, you have to start in the fall. There's lots of students who come in the spring, which is January. Roughly quarters it's pretty much the same, only there's an extra quarter there's a fall quarter, winter, and spring. So but I would say a lot of students come in the fall. That's when, here in the US we say, that's the start of the new academic year. There's a lot of activities that go on, welcoming. This year was a little bit different, of course, because of COVID, but that's where, most new students, that's when they start. But the spring as well, it's also a good option. But I just wanted to share that. So right now we're in February. If you're thinking about it, I think there's still time if you want to come for the fall. But if you miss some deadlines for applications, it's still okay. You can still come and start in the spring. Oh, yes. I see a question. That's also a good question about how much does it cost to submit applications. So yes, most universities and colleges, there is a fee when it comes to submitting an application. So it ranges, $35 US to like $60 US. They're usually around that range. So that is also something, and thank you, Irina, for bringing that up. That's something important to consider. And that's where we help narrow down maybe like 3 to 5 universities that you want to submit applications to, taking into consideration the application fee for these universities and colleges. Some do offer, hey, this week we're gonna, there's no fee to apply. And we do partner. We do partner with universities and colleges when it comes to, when students apply to those universities and colleges. Maybe if that fee is, some burdensome at that time, we can see maybe, we can get that waived or not. It really just depends. But that is something to think about when you're applying. There is going to be some type of fee. And then that's a great question. Are there any restrictions on the number of university or programs one student can apply for? No. It's really, I would say, in a perfect world, the more universities that you apply to, the better. That way, you have maybe it's always good to have a plan A. So, okay, this is my ideal university, but you also need, make sure you have a plan B and a plan C. So, but something to keep in mind is, the application fee. So it really depends on how much money that you want to spend applying to different universities and colleges. So, but no, there is no limit. But I will say, again, depending on, say you look at one university and you want to apply to maybe 3 different programs, it all goes back to what is that unique factor about you. So you have to still, make sure that you're able to share that in your application. So, but yeah, there's no limit. And again, I think that's where it's really important when you work with, somebody like International Student Voice, we can help you narrow down what those best choices are. So I always recommend applying to anywhere from 3 to 5 universities and colleges, just to make sure, that you at least have, some option down the road. But there are some students that just apply to one. They say, I want this one. It's like, okay, well, we'll take a look and we'll say, we think you have a good chance, but okay, we'll see what happens. So I try not to, promise. And that's why I would like to have, I prefer plan A, B, C, and D when it comes to coming to the US to study. Okay. These are great questions. Okay, and I'm glad I'm able to answer and multitasking. Okay, what determines whether you will be given a scholarship or grant? Okay, that's a great question. It depends on what type of scholarship that you are applying for. So we'll go back to the academic scholarship, for example. Usually if it's provided by the university saying we have these scholarships available for international students, they will list, usually on their website, kind of what the minimum are. You have to have a certain GPA, which is a grade point average. You have to be a full-time student. So, and some of the universities that we work with, they have different levels of scholarship based on what your GPA is. So if you have at least a 3.5 out of 4 on the scale, that's our scale here in the US, you could automatically receive an X amount of scholarship. Some are based on those entrance exams that I talked about earlier. So if you have a ACT score, which is an entrance exam, or a SAT or a GRE score of a certain amount, then you would qualify, for a scholarship. So it really depends on the parameters around that. And if you are able, now some are automatic. So some universities and colleges and some of the partners that we work with, they say, okay, if you hit this mark, you automatically get some scholarship money. So, which is usually, it's not going to cover everything, but it helps a lot. Now, some universities offer scholarships where, okay, if you have, at least this grade point average, you can apply. It's not guaranteed, but you can at least apply for that scholarship. So again, that's something, every university and college, they have this all listed out on their website. So it's important to really look at that and make sure that you understand what the criteria is. So this is another great question. How strict are the admission deadlines? I would say before COVID, it was pretty, well, even then, what's a good word for it? They're strict, but they're not strict. How about that? So I'd highly encourage students when possible to follow the deadlines for applications. I would say more so with COVID now, it has become a lot more flexible, just because everyone has, are trying to adjust in this environment, moving things electronically. So I would say do your best to stick to the deadline that's listed on the website. But if for some reason you missed the deadline, I'd highly encourage you to reach out and say, hey, I know that I missed this. I'm still really interested. Can I still do it? Can I still submit my application? And I would be really surprised, if they would come back and say no. But again, it's the best scenario to put yourself in the best situation is to make sure that you meet those deadlines. Okay, these are great questions, so keep them coming. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide here about, I talked about throughout the presentation how International Student Voice can help. So just to kind of highlight that, if you are looking for an organization like ours to help you through this process, more than happy to do so. So what we do through the application process, again, is picking the right major, the right field of study, as well as the right college and university. So depending on what your situation is, not only what it is that you want to study, but as well as your financial situation, we can help you still find a great university that maybe it's going to be more budget friendly for you. If that's because maybe tuition at that university or college is less, or it could be because they offer more scholarships for international students. So really taking a big holistic view of what your situation is, and then being able to say, well, here's the universities and colleges we recommend for you, and here's why. And then we help you complete the application process. So making sure your application is filled out correctly. What is it that you need for a complete application? And any other of those entrance exams. We also review, if you need to write an essay, we review your essay and provide feedback on that, as well as helping you, if you need to gather reference letters and what those should look like. That's a great question. Can female students with kids apply? Absolutely, yes. So we have lots of families that, we have students who bring their families. So if you have a family and you want to bring them, so going back to your student visa, you would have your student visa, and then if you have children, you have a spouse, they would receive, you would have to apply for them, and they would receive what's called it's a dependent visa. So it's tied to yours. So for example, the most common visa for international students is called an F1 visa. So you are the F1, and then your family members would be on an F2 visa. So, but yes, that is no problem at all. So, and then depending on which university or college that you go to, there's an international office there that helps international students, and they can help guide you if, depending on how old your children are, getting them into a school system here in the US, and adjustments like that for your family. So we can help you with the application process, everything that you need to make sure that you have a great application, it's submitted on time. As well, we help advise students when it comes to scholarships, loans, and other means of financing your education. So again, taking a look at your whole situation and figuring out what is best for you. I mentioned the student visa application. We can help you with that and preparing you for your visa interview, as well as the pre-departure orientation. And then, and I think what makes International Student Voice different than other agencies is that, a lot of agencies kind of stop there, but with International Student Voice, our services continue even while you're in the US. So we'll be here if you have questions. Our team, most of our team members are based here in the United States. So while you're here, if you have questions, if you're having trouble with anything, you can always contact us. Our team understands the intricacies and levels of universities and colleges. So if you're not quite sure, who do I need to talk to? You can always reach out to us, and we can help get you where you need to go. And we also provide different career and immigration resources. So maybe if you want to stay in the US and study, to work after you graduate, we can help navigate you through that process as well. Okay, so is it possible to apply for an internship in the US company if you have a visa for students? So if I understand the question correctly, you want to apply for an internship in the US at a US company if you have so maybe if you're in the US on a student visa and you want to do an internship at a company, yes, that is possible. There's just a process that you need to go through. So you're here, as an international student, you have to apply for what is called, so while you're a student, there's a process that's called CPT. And then it's just an approval. You do that through your international office at the university. They'll walk you through how to do that. So it's just a process you have to do. You have to be approved first, and then you can do an internship. And that's while you are a student studying. After you graduate, you apply to something that's called OPT, so which is optional practical training. So that allows you to work in the US if it's an internship or if it's full-time work after you graduate. So yes, you as a student, there are options for you to intern at a US company to gain experience. Okay, cool. Well, that was the end of my presentation. If you are interested in learning more about working with International Student Voice, our website is istudentvoice.com. And if you go under, there's a contact us. There's a short form that we have students fill out. So we gather more information about, what is it you want to study? What type of degree are you looking for? And we take a look at that and we can provide you an assessment. I also wanted to say that our services, if you do want to work with International Student Voice, we do have we call like a deposit fee. It's like, we can adjust, but usually it's about $150 US, but it's a deposit. So that's always needed. We have a form that you sign. We'll work with you. But once you're admitted to a US university or college, we put that money into your student account. So we'll give it back to you. You have that money when you come here in the US, and you can use that to buy supplies, books, whatever else that you need. So our goal is to make you studying in the US the best experience and the most affordable experience as possible. So, but again, if you're interested in learning more about working with us, please go on our website, please follow, subscribe, check out our videos. So yeah, I'm more than happy. Oh, somebody had asked, is there a fee? So we were on the same page. So yeah, we try to keep it as minimal as possible. Our goal is to help international students come to the US to achieve their dreams. So that's how it's like working with us. And I hope that we hear from you soon. So does anybody else have any other questions?
Please write the questions in our chat.
Okay, guys. Yeah, you can just type, or you can just raise your hand and ask questions if you want. Okay, and also we will share the video and presentation with all people who registered, but even those who registered and didn't show up. So yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Carrie.
Yeah, I hope that I provided a general overview, and it's really hard because there's so many different types of universities and colleges in the US, and there's so many different things to study. So I'm not trying to, it's really unique. And that's where, depending on what the student wants to do. So we really try to focus in on that and really about making the best decision, because we understand it's a game changer, right? We're talking about a major step in your life. So we want to make sure that we really take a look and make sure we're getting you on the right path and something that you feel comfortable with. So I hope this provided a general overview. Hopefully you learned something about what it's like to study in the United States. And more than happy to answer any questions here, or if you want to reach out to us via email, social media, whatever that it is.
Yes, all right. So thank you very much, Carrie. And so our next webinar will be in 2 weeks, and we will be talking about startups. I think EdTech startups, but maybe just in general startups. So we will post more information on our social media. So then have a nice day, Carrie, and
Bye.
Good night to everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night.